everybody. My name is Dr. Christy Taylor. I'm a career and executive coach and founder of Work Solutions LLC and Work Global News Magazine. And today I'm excited to bring you another feature for our Changemaker series, Mr. Will Lukang. He's a change agent and diversity champion, seasoned C-suite executive, and agile coach who focuses on leadership development and executive coaching. He just released his new book, Seeds of Leadership, and has already won 3 awards. Also, Will is going to be one of our featured speakers for the Prescription for Career Success Summit. Will, we're excited to have you today. I'm going to turn it over to you to briefly introduce yourself, and then we'll jump right into the interview.
Hi, Dr. Taylor. First of all, thank you for having me tonight. Really appreciate it. I'm really excited to have a conversation with you.
Yeah, I'm so excited because the Prescription for Success conference is just all about bringing in like-minded individuals to champion, uh, just to motivate and champion people to reach their full potential. And that's what you're all about. It's really been a pleasure to watch and interact with you over the last few months as you've gone out and you're speaking on your book. Now, you're in a lot of your readings and your bio, you talk about that your journey when it began with self-doubt. And that's part of what I want to focus our discussion in today, because although you're going to be speaking at the conference, this really is all about introducing the audience to you. So many of us, we experience self-doubt, and here you are, a C-suite level executive and agile coach. I just want to talk a little bit about a pivotal moment in high school when you decided to believe in yourself, because this goes far back, right? This journey that you had to get you to where you are today.
It definitely go far back. Growing up in a family of three children, both my brother and sister, they're really smart. They're really brilliant, and they're always in honor rolls. Every year they get a lot of medals and award. And I was the middle child, and I don't come home with medals and award. So my parents were really hard on me, and they always said that, well, you're really not as smart as your sibling, and I don't know what you're gonna do in the future because only the smart one make it. They land the best job out there, and I don't know what you're gonna do. So I think over time that start to affect me, and because I'm really proud of my sibling, and I'm so proud of them, but I also doubt about what would I do when I grow up, because if I'm not as smart as them and every smart kid got the best job possible, what's there for me to do? And self-doubt creep in because your parents words are powerful, right? When you were young, whatever they said, it's like the truth. And to me it started to like affected me as I go through middle school, that wow, I might not have a future, what should I do? And then as I get through that particular mindset, it started to affect me even more. It's like you already have a pressure and you're now starting to doubt yourself. And then I go through a couple more years until I got to high school, and I said to myself, I'm not performing as well as my sibling. I get that. But then if I continue down this road, I probably end up nowhere. Right. And a big part of what I realized is you need to believe in yourself. So in my junior year, I have a teacher that saw the talent that I have and start having conversation with me and says, I think you're going to be really good someday. And I'm like, I don't know what you're talking about. But she took an interest and start telling me like, you just need to try a little bit harder sometimes. I felt like you probably could push it a little bit more. And with that word of wisdom, I said to myself, I'm going to start today in my junior year in high school. And I said, I'm going to start today, take a small step, but start focusing on what can I do to improve myself, and forget about the fact that I'm not smart, I'm not brilliant, I can't be like as good as my sibling, but what can I do today to move the needle in the right direction? And to be told, everything I did one day at a time led me to where I am today, and it's just a testament to mindset is so important.
Yeah, it really is. And I love the fact that you kind of took it back to where it all started, because sometimes if you're listening to this and you're a parent, I think a lesson that you can take away from Will immediate is like the level of influence that you have on your child's life, whether good or bad intentions, because parents are people too, right? You are a spirit influence on your child's life, and you speaking life into them it plays a role. So those expectations that you set in education. I've been an educator for 20 plus years. There's a theory called the theory of expectancy, right? And you're being told, well, you're not going to perform this. But one of the things I'm really glad, Will, that along your path that you actually found yourself and what works for you. Now, fast forward, you co-founded a company focused on leadership development, because you've had this full-fledged career journey. And so what was the driving force behind your decision to all of these years later to open this company? And what has been the most fulfilling part of you helping others become leaders?
The driving force is figuring out what I want to do next. And I've been wanting to do coaching and leadership development for many years. And actually I'm doing it on the side, but I felt like that's the one that brings a lot of energy to me. It's what I'm passionate about. So
Mhm.
for the past like 15 years, I've been doing it on the side, and I always tell myself one day I want to do this for real. Like, and then I decided when a couple of people approached me on the idea of creating this company, I was mentoring them, and they decided like, why don't we form this company? And that was the eureka moment that says, wow, this is something I was thinking for many years. Now I get the opportunity to give it a shot, and I did. And what really motivates me is to see people grow and develop when you work with them, to see people pivot from a challenging position that they felt they're stuck, and all of a sudden you're able to like nudge them with the work that you're doing, the training and development that you're doing, able to nudge them in the right direction, and sometimes even propel them, because they just didn't think that they could do it. And all of a sudden, after working with you for a couple of months, they start having this light eureka moment where they're like, wow, I could do it. And they start just take off, right? And being able to see people in that state where they're succeeding, it's a very rewarding moment. It's like a parent seeing your kids do well in whatever thing they're passionate about. It's one of the greatest gifts of doing this type of work.
I mean, and here's the thing: you didn't just show up a leader, right? You have
No.
had a career that has spanned it, and so you shared a little bit about your childhood and what shaped you. But I mean, you had a career that took you from software development to global opportunities. You didn't just show up today and say, I'm a
No.
leadership coach. You know, I remember when I was about 20 years old, 19, 20 years old, I used to be like, I want to be a career coach. Now, I've always said it, right? And, you know, it was cute to say it back then, right? But, you know, I didn't have a career yet, but I just knew I wanted to be a career coach. And here I am 20 years later, really moving into that space, kind of like you. I'm like, well, I want to do this. For me, it is a side. I always will have a full-time career because I'm not there yet, right? But to even be in this space now was like, okay, I was 19, 20, saying I want to be a career coach. That is so different from somebody who's now in their 40s, who has a lot more. I'm a lot more seasoned and definitely have had my career experiences, layoffs, everything. So, you know, your career, as I mentioned, took you from software development to global opportunities. How did you navigate the shift, and what role did your mindset play in that process? Because you've talked a lot about how you cultivated your own mindset and been impacted by others.
Things around understanding what you want to do in life, I think. And I had this vision of what I want to do, and I love to plan, and that's one of the things I love to do. It's career planning, and I always have a 5 year plan of what I want to do. And even though I was in software development, leading teams globally, I always have this passion that someday I want to do this, and I want to start working on it. And over time, I was able to do it on the side, doing a mastermind session, training session over the weekend, and coaching people. And the more I do it, I realize that's something that energizes me. And the more I get to work with people, the more that energy drives me to think that some days this really what I want to do. Mindset is really important because when you start something new, it is really hard, right? It's really hard to land your first client, get the first opportunity. So your mindset plays an important role in making sure you stay on the path where you want to be, because it would take time, and at times your patience will be tested. Even though you with the right intention, with the good people around you, sometimes it takes time to get there to where you need to be. And therefore being able to lean on one another, being able to step back sometime, and being able to celebrate quick wins and small success, I think is important and vital for your success.
It really is. And I think, again, I'm so glad that you shared your story from early on and how you got to where you are today. Because, again, you didn't just jump in and say, oh, yeah, I think I want to be a leader today. I'm going to start a whole coaching company, right? This comes from years of experience and and being able to speak to those things. Like the kind of coach I was at 19 to 20 is definitely going to be different from who I am today as a more seasoned professional who's experienced the ups and downs of trying to navigate. And I'm sure the same experience that same thing, which is why you were able to write this awesome book that I want to spend some time talking about, which is The Seeds of Leadership. Now, as I mentioned, you just released the book. You've already won 3 awards. You're already speaking on it. So it's something people need. I've been following you on Facebook. I mean, you are mailing out copies of this book. Hold it up one more time for us, Will, because we're going to make sure that we plug it for you
Yes.
and put the link. So Seeds of Leadership, let's talk a little bit about that, right? And what inspired you to write this book, because leadership has always been a central theme of your work. And so in context of answering this, I would love for you to just kind of share, your definition of like, you talk a lot about servant leadership. How do you define servant leadership, and really what inspired you to write this book, and what do you hope people to take away from it?
That's a very good question. What is servant leadership? Servant leadership is about serving other people. It's not about not caring about yourself. It's about being selfless. It's about focusing on other people first ahead of you. And I think that's an important notion that we as leader have to keep in mind, that when we get to that opportunity to be able to be a leader, people don't work for us. We work for them. We actually are there to help them grow and develop, and that's really why it's so important for me to actually be able to share my knowledge. What inspires me to write the book is the years of experience. I have over 3 decades of experience. I'm dating myself. I'm showing people how old I am. I have over 3 decades of experience, and throughout my journey there are these moments of things that I experienced, that I captured them. And I said to myself, someday I want to write about this. Someday I want to write about this experience. And as I go through my journey, I start to compile them. And I said to myself, my goodness, there's a lot of good information about this. And I really love to be able to share this to the world. And that's how the idea of writing the book came about, that I want to write about seed of leadership. And I love the concept of seed, planting something, watering it, nurturing it, and having to grow. And the seed of leadership consists of 3 pillars. The first pillar is you developing yourself. Rarely do you hear people talk about leadership in terms of them developing themselves. It's always like, I'm a leader. I move up the rank and I became a leader. But leadership is so important that you ask yourself the question: do you want to be a leader? And if you want to be a leader, are you willing to put in the time and sacrifice and help people grow? So the first pillar is self development. A second pillar is around growing people, growing talent about around you, and helping people grow, because that's what leadership is all about. It's about growing people around you and developing more leader to create that capacity for your organization. And the third pillar is ultimately very impactful, is looking into the future. As you are leading other people, that position is not permanent. Just like anything else in life, it's temporary. You're holding that position for a certain period of time. So therefore, you need to be mindful about developing people that would take on that role for you to step away and do something else. And that third pillar is about looking into the future. And to me, I really want to talk about that, because I do think of leadership as a transitional state. At some point, you move on, and someone else needs to take on your role.
I think that's so important about leaders not pigeonholing organizations, right? Because I talk a lot about workplace resiliency and succession planning. You, as a leader, you should be training your replacement. You shouldn't
Yep.
be looking at it as if I'm here to stay forever, because you're not, right? You should always be planning your next move. And I was looking at your bio here. When you talk about servant leadership being the cornerstone of leadership practice, I just want to read a piece of your bio. The cornerstone of your leadership model, leadership practice, is the concept of leading by example, a value that was instilled in you by your father. You believe that we can make a greater impact by acting with others rather than alone, because of
Yep.
with the right support, motivation, and mission we can achieve. And that kind of goes back into those pillars that you were talking about. And I want to circle back, because you started this off by talking a little bit about your experiences growing up. But even though you spoke that you had those experiences, you were still inspired by your father when it came to being a servant leader, right? Family has played a major role in motivation. It's a source for you. How do you balance the demands of being a leader and entrepreneur with your personal life? And what advice do you have for others trying to maintain that balance? Like, what role does family play for you today? Even in the course of how you approach your own leadership, and how do you find balance in all of this?
That's an amazing question, right? Family plays an important role. To me, family is the cornerstone of one person's success. If you have a good foundation, you are going to be successful. And to me, I draw a lot of my inspiration from my family. Even when I'm having challenging day or tough period, I always look at my family. Even like I have a picture of my two daughters in my office back in the days, and I would look at them, and when I'm having a challenging day or terrible day or a bad day, I look at the picture and says, this is what I'm doing the work for. This is why I need to persevere and work hard because they're the one that I'm doing the work for. And therefore, to me, family is extremely important. It's the cornerstone of my success. And it's that's where I draw my inspiration. How do you balance? And I think that's a very important question too, because when people talk about work and life balance, it's like you need to pick one over the other, right? And there's many notions,
Hey,
school of
this is
thought.
one of the things where I say work life integration.
Yes, yes. And the way I look at it, it's a question of priority. It's a question of what you want to accomplish. And if you understand what are your big rocks, and you need to take care of your big rock first, and what are your medium rocks, I think that's what it matters at the end of the day. In fact, I actually did an episode of this on my podcast about time management. People talk about you need to learn you need to learn about time management, and I always said it's not about time management, it's about priority. Understanding your priority and what's important to you drives the work that you do. So therefore, as an entrepreneur and a family person, I also try to find the balance of when do I do what I do, and when do I put in the more effort that I need to do in order to actually get things done. And ultimately, at the end of the day, your family is there for a period of time. Your kids are not going to be kids forever. So therefore, you need to understand you need to spend time with them. And I always I just was talking to a friend of mine because they have their son now in high school. And I said, we have a 18-year lease when we have kids.
That's what
It's a
I.
lease of 18 years.
You get
18
18
years they're
summers.
18 years they're with us. After that, they go to college and they're an adult at that point. They come and visit you. They call you call them, the best you could, but they're not with you anymore. You could only influence them. So therefore, the first 18 years of that period, it's immensely important how you spend the time for the first 18 years would ultimately, you know, give you that perspective in the next, 20 years thereafter.
Yeah, and I mean, family influences so much of what we do, and I think I was talking to somebody earlier today. We talk about quality of life over quantity of life. But as you pointed out, priorities are so important because you don't only get those 18 summers, 18 years. So here
Yes.
you have this career that has expanded over 3 decades. I mean, you're doing leadership, coaching. You said that your goal, if you're already not, and clarify me if I'm wrong, is now you're at the point where you're transitioning to doing this work full
Yeah,
time.
but yep.
Yep.
7 months now. 7 months.
Yep, I still have some ways to go. For me, is all of these things that I'm building. I still plan to have a robust career, but I think that those are some good examples. The contrast between even the experiences of you and I is like, hey, if you're listening into this, it takes work to get there. And you listening to Will talk about his experience, how he's balanced family life and leadership, what has really inspired him, and on your leadership journey you have really seen some of the firsthand, some of the challenges of leadership. And so, as we begin to kind of wrap up this interview, I just want to ask you a couple more questions to give advice to the audience. What do you believe is like the most important quality in a leader, and why?
I think the most important quality of a leader is the character of the leader. I think that to me is the most important, and at times that's what's missing in this world. We have leaders who don't have the right character. They're not trustworthy, and I think they get their mind get clouded with greed. Right. So to
Yeah.
me, integrity and character, which is integrity, is a big part of it. Is immensely important. So when I look at leaders, especially when I look back at my career, the leaders that are truly have influenced me are people that are character that I respect and admire and really follow what they do because they are really there day in and day out doing the right work, whether anyone's looking or not.
In the Air Force, we say excellence, integrity, and service before self. Not only have I, that's obviously if I've been around the military for 20 plus years, that is something that is like literally ingrained in me, right? There's nothing moving in excellence. And I think all of those are wrapped up into what you said in terms of character. It's so important. And so we're going to have a lot of young professionals, mid-career professionals who are tuning in, who access this podcast, and also who plan to attend the Prescription for Success Summit. What advice would you give someone who's just starting out on their leadership journey? Because like I've said 10 times, probably in this little few minutes that we've been together, you didn't just jump here because people just like, ta-da, I'm a leader, right? You know what I mean? But what advice would you give to someone who's just starting out in their career or leadership, entrepreneurship, especially when they face challenges and doubt along the way?
Number one, learn to ask for help. Sometimes we're afraid to ask for help because we think that by asking for help, it meant we're weak. But the
Mhm.
reality is not. If we're stuck and we need help, reach out to someone you know. Dr. Christy Taylor, you could reach out to her. She would always help you. Like, how many times had I posted something and you said, "No, that's not good," right? Like, you're naturally gifted at that, and that's what I really appreciate about you too. Is there are people that really wants to help you, just like Dr. Christy Taylor. There are people like her. Just learn to ask for help. You don't have to do it alone. You don't have to do it alone. And I learned it. I learned the hard way, because when I started my career, I thought that as a software developer, asking for help is not a good thing. People think I'm not good at it. But then over time, I realized sometimes you could spin your wheel for like a day or so, or you could ask someone and they know because they experienced that in the past, and you solve it in 30 minutes.
I know.
Right?
I know. Sometimes
Right?
it can be, asking help can be difficult. I guess like, anybody that I cross paths with, that's just part of the character thing, right? When I see something that's not right, I just try to correct it on site, or at least provide the advice like, hey, to help somebody out, because that energy is returned back to you when you put good out in the world. So usually my last question is, what advice would you give? But I feel like the advice that you've given is been great. So we'll leave it there at that. But I just also, before we wrap up today, I mean, just want to, now you're going to be one of the speakers for the Prescription for Career Success Summit. Can you just briefly touch on the topic? I would just say like 30 seconds on top, because we want to just give them a hint and a clue, not the full spin, for what you're going to be speaking about at the conference.
First of all, I'm really excited, and I want to thank you, Dr. Taylor, for the opportunity to be part of this event.
Yeah.
This RX for Career Success Summit is going to be immensely important to a lot of people. The topic that I'm going to be talking about is the top 10 tips for career management. Over 3 decades of my career, I collected a lot of things that I felt was really valuable. And had I known that, you know 10, 20 years ago, my career would be a lot further than where it is. Not that I have any regrets, but I'm saying, if that's why I want to share that. Those top 10 career tree management tips would go a long way when someone learns those today, and being able to navigate their journey.
Yeah, and I was also looking at your book. I'm gonna see if I can get you connected to my resource group, and maybe you can come and speak about your book, because people are really in need of this type of advice. So, Will, it's really been such a pleasure to be able to interview with you today. Whenever this airs, I'm really excited for people to learn more about how to connect with you in the work that you do. Looking forward to the Prescription for Career Success Summit. Here at Work Solutions, the RX, because everybody's always like, well, how do you say the name of your business? It's just work. But the RX, because we are the prescription for change. We are writing the prescription for people's career success, workplace success. So it's really an honor to be able to work with coaches like you. Now, how can people reach you, Will?
You could reach me on LinkedIn, Will Lukang on LinkedIn. I'm the only one. There's only one Will Lukang on LinkedIn. So LinkedIn's the best way to reach out to me, and all my information are there. I usually respond to anyone who message me. So looking forward to interacting with all of you. Want to thank you, Dr. Taylor, for having me tonight. I really appreciate the opportunity to have this conversation with you, and more importantly, want to thank you for creating this movement of helping people with their career success. It's immensely important and powerful mission. So thank you, Dr. Taylor, for doing that, and for your service to our country too. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Will. It's truly been a pleasure.